Hello, you're listening to E-Bible Fellowship's new Open Forum Excerpts, and now we present the following excerpt.
Welcome to our new Open Forum program. Please go ahead with your call.
Hey, Chris. I believe it was yesterday you mentioned the 200 million. And it was interesting. You said that the possibility that the 200 million were possible, the great multitude. If so, we look at it like that and we say, okay, it's a literal number. How would we look at the 144,000?
Well, yeah, the 144,000 is a number God uses for a couple of times. And he also uses the figure of 12,000 times 12. And it's not to be taken literally. It's a figure, the number 12 and multiples of 10, complete fullness of the first fruits. I understand what you're saying, but the reference to the 200 million just stands out as the greatest number that we find in the Bible concerning God's elect. And all of those other verses, when that came up, the exceeding great army, the reference to great multitude, the great catch of fish of John 21, it's indicating this is far greater than anything in comparison that has come before it. And I don't have, I think, an absolute answer to that. The way I have understood it is the 200 million is either pointing to the complete number of all elect throughout all time, or the complete number of all the elect saved during the little season of the little season of the Great Tribulation. And one thing to consider, it's in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and this would fit right in with these verses that are giving us this idea, just a tremendous number. In 2 Corinthians 9, we read, and this is a biblical principle, in verse 6, but this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. And that has to be understood, with the amount of gospel or gospel seed that was sown on the hearts of men for that about 17 years of the latter rain is unparalleled, unprecedented in all human history. The gospel just kept going out over the airwaves. And also we have to keep in mind the tremendous boom in world population. Past history, population would start to grow big, and then there'd be a plague. And the population would grow big, and there'd be a world war. And yet then, the diseases started coming under control. The wars, they were still there, but they weren't killing as many in the later decades of the 20th century. And so the world population was about 7 billion people, 7 billion people at the time of May 21, 2011. And we know God saves a remnant out of the whole. And so the number of 200 million sounds just huge, but actually I believe it's 200 million. I did the math a while ago, but it's been a while. I think it was like 2.7 point something percent of the world population. Rounded off, it would be, you round it up to 3%. And I was looking at that because of Gideon, and the 300 out of 10,000 is, I believe, 3%. And so the total number, if it were the total number of 200 million saved at that time, would be right around 3%, a little lower than that. And that would be in keeping with the whole idea of a remnant with few and yet it would also, it would fulfill this idea, if you sow bountifully, you reap bountifully. Now we witnessed the bountiful sowing of God across the face of the earth. And it was tremendous. There really has been no comparable outreach at any time in past history. And even if you go into past history, you don't have that population. It's only when the population was so great and the gospel could be sent over an electronic medium that it became possible. So I fully believe it. 200 million, I'm not sure exactly if it's 200 million total, and maybe there was 180, 185, 190 saved in that second part of the Great Tribulation, or if it were 200 million just in that little period of time. But it sounds just super tremendous to us, maybe too big, and yet not really when we start looking at, these kinds of verses and God's tendency to save the best for last and so forth.
Thanks for watching, and be on the lookout for more new Open Forum excerpts that will be added periodically.